Awesome. So, welcome everyone. This is Nostalgia Screams, Gammahead Press's official podcast. I'm AJ Malacarni, your host, and today I'm talking to someone super awesome who's actually involved in a upcoming project we have, which we will get into a bit later. But Matt, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Yeah. My name is Matt Harding, and I make comics and work in the industry. And yeah, I'm a artist up in Portland, artist and writer up in Portland, and that is who I am.
Yeah, no, you just do so much cool work, and I think it's really cool that you both do writing and art because your art alone is phenomenal. But I I found a bunch of your writing and was looking at that before we jumped on here, and some of it is phenomenal. I was really liking I have some questions about it later,
Sure.
but we can actually jump into that now. You did a comic for Dave Gibbons' universe, which didn't end up going published, but that was such a cool project. How and you've been involved in like numerous like different shared universes, different like projects, and I also really love the like for example the Boba Fett fan comic you did.
Oh
Um
yeah.
all cool stuff. Do you have like a favorite kind of universe that you've gotten to play around in, be it through like it could be official or fan art?
Well, so right now my favorite one is actually yours,
Oh, I
because
agree.
I'm really getting into writing that story. Like I tend to do that. Like I get really try to get as much into what I'm working on like as possible, and you created a really cool world that I get to like play around in. So right now that's my favorite one, Um,
Awesome.
yeah.
I appreciate that so much. That means a lot. And I this next question is going to go direct. Like working for Oni Press, or am I pronouncing that right?
Yeah, Oni Press. I'm sorry, you kind of cut out for a second, so I didn't know what I just heard Oni Press. I
Yeah.
didn't.
Oh, sorry. What's it
Yeah, no
like
problem.
working with them?
Oh, it's great.
I saw the announcement on your page a little bit ago on Twitter. Refused to call it X. But
Yeah.
I I always thought that was really cool. What's that? What do you do with them, and what's that like?
So I'm a production artist there. So like I work with a design team and stuff like that, and I get books ready for print and for digital and all that kind of stuff. So I kind of jump in where needed to get things kind of over the finish line, and it's a really cool job. It's a really cool publisher. I joined up uh when kind of like they had a lot of problems about a year ago, where like they kind of like rebooted the company a bit, and I kind of came in right after that. And so like I joined at a time where it's been really exciting, and like it's a lot of like like everybody's super motivated, and it's kind of like during that part of a company where everybody's like trying to do their best work and really into all of it. It's not there's no like disgruntled, oh, we've been here 20 years and like I can't do this job. It's all like it's all the fun part, like nothing but like aspirations, and it's really good. It's really cool. And the design team is amazing, and the art team is amazing, and the bosses are amazing, and it's a lot of fun. And I like because I had been doing a lot of freelance before. I did about geez, I want to say 2 or 3 years of freelance. And then I was at a company, Made Fire, doing motion comics. That's how I met Dave Gibbons. Um, and so I kind of go between freelance and like salaried jobs, and I'm always doing freelance outside of salaried jobs. But I actually kind of feel like having like a salaried job, having a paycheck, having that is a better thing for me,
Hmm.
just because of how I am with like money and taxes and all that stuff. Um, and making art, it's a better thing for me to kind of be able to have like like to do creative projects I want to do and that I have free time to do, and I don't feel like I have to take every single job,
Yeah.
like it, which is a lot of people like have a hard time like having like a day job, but I actually it kind of like helps me actually, you know what I mean,
Mhm. Yeah, no,
personally.
I definitely get that. It helps give you like a little bit of structure for your time when you can do creative stuff and be like, yeah, this is time I really need to like buckle down and focus instead of just having your whole day where you're like, oh, I have so much time I can get all done, and then it just ends up you get none of it done. But no, I totally agree. My day job helps me like stay on schedule a lot more.
Yeah, and you can have fun with the creative stuff you do. Like I feel like when I was freelancing or whenever I'm just freelancing, I'm so concerned about money. Like I mean, because especially with like comics, it was all small jobs. Like I'm not getting hired to do like a 10 issue run on Spider-Man. You know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah,
always like, oh, I need this cover, or I need this short story, or I need this, and so like I'd be like, oh, okay, I got money coming in for like 2 weeks, and then I'd be like, oh God, like I got to find something. So you're like hustling at the same time as trying to do the work, and it's a balance. Like it's hard,
yeah.
like it's
No,
rough.
I get that. Yeah. So kind of along with being in freelance, you worked with so many talented people. What were some of those experiences like? And do you have any like favorite stories from some of the people you've worked with?
Yeah. So one of my favorite people to work with is this guy, Justin Greenwood. He's an artist, and he did like Stumptown, and he did oh geez, what was the one that he just came out with? Oh The Fuse he did for Image, which was great. I worked with him on Hamilton, a Hamilton book. And I knew him because he went to the same college as I did, and he lived pretty close. And I actually met him through my dad of all people, because my dad's a really big comic book fan, and he had gone to one of our conventions that we were both at, and had like asked Justin to like do a drawing for him. And so Justin came over to my table and had given it to me, and we had talked and got to know each other. And he had hired me to do to kind of like help him with art on a book, on a Hamilton graphic novel that was through I believe it was Penguin's comic book imprint, which is how was it, like 10 speed press or something like that, or 2-ton press. It's one of those. I'll have to look it up, but it was like a whole graphic novel about the same time that the musical was hitting. And so he hired me because he had to do like 4 or 5 pages a day to be able to hit the deadline. And so I came in and I kind of like did a lot of inking for him, or like a lot of layouts, and I prepped everything for sending it to the colorists and stuff like that, kind of like what I do for owning. But I got to draw a lot of stuff, and I got to like do a lot of the like tedious like kind of art duties that he would have to like need help with, right? So like if there was a page that had like a bunch of writing on it that's part of like the Constitution, he would send that over to me, and I'd pen out the Constitution for him, that
Yeah.
kind of stuff, or backgrounds, or stuff like that. And he handled the more like important things like the main characters and stuff like that. And that was fun because it was just like us sitting around his studio for like 14 hours a day for a good couple months, and just listening to the Hamilton soundtrack, which I
Mhm.
hadn't heard yet. So like we were like studying that while also doing the Hamilton book, and it was just like full on Hamilton uh lifestyle, and it was pretty fun. Like that was a fun experience.
That's so cool. That's like a really cool like fusion of like comics and music. That's so neat. Did you have like a favorite part of the book that you got to work on?
Yeah. There's a scene where they show like a painting of like the Revolutionary War, and I got to actually like draw out the painting and do all the inking for it. And I put me and Justin in the painting. So like if you have that book and you look at this painting of the Revolutionary War, you'll see us like hanging out like Jay and Silent Bob style, like in the painting, which is fun.
That's that's amazing. Have you ever snuck yourself or other people into other comics you've done?
I did. The other time I did it, so I try to put a lot of people that I know into the comics I do. So like I try to sneak people in a lot. Um, I have a story coming out from DC that I snuck some people into, which I think is fun. My partner Sarah, I put her in there. Um, she now officially is going to have a bar in Gotham, which is kind of cool.
That's so
Um,
cool.
but yeah, I put myself into a My Little Pony comic, which was funny because so when I worked at Madefire was like a motion comics company. They did like a lot of motion comics,
Hmm.
and we had like an IDW contract, so we did a lot of IDW stuff. And so when we do the animation, we have to like cut things out and draw in backgrounds behind things and stuff like that. And it's where I learned how to do a lot of like adaptation with art because I had to match a lot of different art styles,
Yeah.
And I stuck myself into there's a My Little Pony comic where they go to a universe where they're all humans, and I'm in that comic for sure. Like I put myself in the background, just like thumbs up and be like, hey, And my editor
That
caught it, even though it was for like only a split second. He messaged me. He's like, "Did you put yourself in this comic?" And I was like, "Yeah, I did."
that's so cool though. Um,
Yeah,
And kind of along with work that I think you've done that's really cool. You were the artist on All the Devils Are Here, which
yeah.
so cool. Um, I remember when that book came out, and I remember you and the whole team promoting that. That was such a cool thing. What was that like working on that book and that whole process?
So yeah, I mean, speaking of good experiences, that was a really good experience. I did that right. So when Madefire like went under and we all lost our jobs there, I did it like right as that happened. So like I went straight from doing that to doing freelance for with this guy Jared, and I was able to work on it, because I was getting like unemployment, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna like really. And it was right when the pandemic was happening, so like it was like when everybody was stuck in home, and like not only was I getting unemployment, but I was getting the what do you call it, the pandemic
Stimulus check?
assistance, yeah, like
Yeah.
that thing. um and so like yeah, I put all my focus into that book, which was like a creator owned book,
Hmm.
and working with Jared was fantastic. Like he's an amazing person, and he's like super supportive, and if you haven't like gotten to know him 100%, you should, because he's very like supportive, and he's very like he's like a hype man, like he loves being part of indie comics, and he's just a really good dude. And so like with that, he kind of came to me with the script, and he said, just go nuts, like he told me, because he had seen a web comic I was doing, and it's a weird web comic, and he told me like, yeah, I want you to take my script and go with it in wild directions, right? Like, all right. And so like I went crazy with it. Like I made it weird, like I designed the really weird characters, and I did all this, I pushed it as far as I possibly could. And the whole time, and a lot of writers I think would have a problem with that a little bit, like because it is taking a lot of creative control and all that, and a lot of writers will, myself included, will have kind of like an idea of what they want, kind of thing. But it was kind of like with what you did with your anthology, right? Like you were just like go and do something cool,
Yeah.
like you didn't try to like control it, and he definitely didn't. He just I would send him a page and he would love it. And he had very few notes, and he was just excited the entire time. And it turned out really great. Like it was a passion project, and for both of us, for a 44-page comic that was, start to finish, you get the whole story, which I think is a great format after doing it. Like I think that's a really good format. You could sell it for like $10. People don't have to, especially if you're like an indie guy, kind of getting your start and stuff, trying to get stuff out there. It's a really good way to go because you're not like locked into doing 5 issues of something where you're not making any money on something, and it's a passion project. You have your one thing, and you can make more if you want, but you got your one thing, and you could sell that, and you could show it to people, kind of like with your anthology. Like you're going to be
Yeah.
able to do that. Yeah, you're not going to
Yeah.
be like, oh, you have to get, to get this, you're going to have to get the next four of them, and you don't know what's going to happen in 5 years. I
Yeah.
mean,
No.
if all goes well, it'll keep going, but
Yeah.
you never know.
That was definitely a lot of the intention with it was just to make short consumable stories that like yeah you can understand the rest of the universe to help better understand it, but really it's just like fun stories. I'm so excited for yours, which we're going to get to in a bit, but kind of along with your whole story so far, what is it like as someone who both writes and draws for comics? What I know it's not everyone does that, and a lot of people just do one or the other. But what's that been like for you for being on both sides of the table?
Uh, so for me, it's almost a little torturous. Like the reason I do that is because I like doing both. so much that I kind of like I'm like, man, I really want to draw something. And I'll be drawing it, and I'll do that for like a month, and it's like almost like ADD, like it's kind of like having ADD, and they're like, dang, I just want to write something, and then like I'll go write something, I'll be like, ah, man, I miss drawing something. It's just like this torturous back and forth like scale. Um, I think for me especially, because when I went to school, they said you got to focus on one thing, right? Like pick one thing, focus on it. And that's what all the teachers were saying, and and that includes like learning, right? Like I think a lot of people who write and draw, or a lot of people who try to write and draw, they won't necessarily like focus on learning about one of those things, like the like I think a lot of artists think, oh, I could definitely write something, right? But they won't put the same amount of effort into like learning how to write. But it is just as hard. It has so much information and thought and training put into writing as there is to drawing.
Mhm.
Um, and so, it took me a little while to feel competent in both. Um, Whereas, like if I had just focused on drawing, I probably would have been faster in my life, like getting to a point where I feel like I could, like be a professional artist. But I kind of like learning about everything and stuff. So like I I like learning about coloring and lettering, and I like knowing how to do these things. And so it's a slower process because I'm not focusing on just one thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, but like I think with writing and with art, I am at a good level of being able to be professional with it now. But like there's so many books I had to read, and there's so many like mistakes I had to make, and it is a lot of learning. But
Yeah.
it's fun though. It's like like writing's just like art, where you have to be really good at structuring, and you have to take critiques well, and it's the same deal.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. I'm at an art school right now and I try to learn how to draw, but I'm just focused on writing. But me and my roommate is an excellent artist, and so we teach each other tips back and forth on like improving stuff on each of our projects. And it's so much fun to he taught me how to paint, which is just like it's so much of the similar like things just applied in a very different way. Like writing a story, you have to have like a lot of it planned out before. Like my big problem with visual drawing was I was just rushing into things with like a half-ass idea, and then but he was like, yeah, you gotta plan it all out just like you would for one of your comics. You gotta like plan the whole thing out. uh and no, I think it's so cool that you view it just as wanting to learn as much as possible. And it definitely shows in your work. You have so many different styles you've nailed, and so much like in your writing is fantastic. So
Well, thank you.
um which kind of leads us into the section about the project. So for our viewers, I'm kind of introducing the project here because I've been kind of quote unquote secretive about it on social media. I published a lot of information about on my newsletter before I realized, crap, I should have announced all this that early. So that's no longer available anywhere. But the basic of the project is it's called Tales from Exit 56. And basically, we have this god figure who died in the far past, but their body lays under the city of Easton, Ohio, and it basically fuels the weird things that happen in the city. It's Twilight Zone meets Gravity Falls with like a hint of Vertigo in there. Uh, definitely, I was definitely inspired by like Sandman, lots of other books like that. I was consuming tons of Shade to Changing Man as I was reading this. Um,
Yeah.
but how Matt got involved was I had met Justin Emmons, who a lot of you will know from Finger Guns, lots of other amazing books. And Justin was kind of like mentoring me through a lot of stuff. And Justin was the first co-writer we brought on. And then I was like, I want someone else involved in this project because one of the cores of that project is consumable stories made by tons of different people. I don't want just my voice on this project. I want tons of different voices. So I remember posting about it and tons of people responded and you responded, Matt, and I was like, I know I have to get you on this story. Like I've seen your work. I think it's excellent. So I was like, I have to have you on this.
I
So,
super appreciate it. Like it's really cool to be like involved in this, you know?
awesome.
And the way that you brought me in too was like was really cool too. Like it was flattering, you know? Like you're like, "Oh, I need to have you be a part of this." I was like, "Absolutely." Like it's super fun. I mean, just to throw in I'm gonna hype your project up a little bit. Um it does really remind, it has like a rich like lore to it like Sandman has, but it's got like this kind of like a small town. It all takes place in this one town, kind of like oh, what was that show, like Eureka or something, or like even like Lost a little bit, where it's all kind of like centered in this one place where all this weird stuff is happening, with like this tapestry of like gods and stuff who are, have their own agendas, and it's really interesting.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I'm so excited to see how you work. I'm so excited for our audience to see how you work within that tapestry. Um, can you tell our audience, like not without spoiling anything, can you tell our audience about the story you're working on?
Sure, yeah. So mine is kind of like it's almost like a callback to like Silver Age comics. With like kind of like a play on like a Spider-Man or something, and I have one of the characters who is one of the gods, who is kind of how do I do this without spoilers, I guess orchestrating this story.
Yeah.
And um yeah, it's kind of like it's like an origin story that's not an origin story, you know what I mean? Like it's like a horror, there's just some horror, there's some comedy, um but mainly it's like a commentary on older comics, I guess, but using this world to do it, which because when you brought to me, like you said, oh, I want to be, you could do superhero stuff, you could do sci-fi, you could do all this different stuff, and I was like, oh man, like that's, what do I want to do, and I haven't written a comic, like a superhero comic, in a while, so I kind of just wanted to do a play on that.
Yeah, I was really excited because everyone I pitched it to was like, I was like, you can do whatever you want. And yours and Justin's are very dynamically different, but they're also so similar, which for listeners, we're going to do an interview with Justin in a bit that you all get to listen to hear about their story. But it's so cool how you all kept like the the darkness of the universe where it's like, yeah, it's definitely more mature than like something like Gravity Falls or something like that, but it keeps that weirdness and that fun, but it's also like really dark and twisted, which I'm so excited for. But your story is fantastic. Can you tell us about the artist you have involved on this project?
Yeah, so that's actually another big part, is that when I was able to get Nick Cagnetti, who I met through Oni, he did Pink Lemonade for us, and he did a short for an anthology that we made earlier last year, mid last year, called Xeno, Xino, and which is just like a series of short like sci-fi, weird sci-fi stories. He did something for that, and up until that story, all he had really worked on a lot was Pink Lemonade, which is like his. He did a Kickstarter a long time ago, and it's like his baby. Like I think he's been working on it since he was a kid, and it's like a wholesome story. It's not like horrific or gross. It's like a kind of a wholesome story. But then we put him on Xeno, and he's kind of got like a Mike Aldred feel to his art. Like you could tell he was really influenced by him, and but he did this story where this guy gets something put into him to make him part of like a video game, right? And then all of a sudden there are people chasing him, and he's freaking out. And there's a scene where he pulls it out of his body, like he like rips it out of his arm, and it's like he's like pulling it out of himself, and I think it ultimately kills him. But it is so disturbing that we got to see Nick's artwork take this really like kind of like happy tone, and then just dip right into like, holy crap, like this is a horror story.
Yeah.
Like, oh my god, this is like really gory. And so like, in knowing that, that's kind of what I wanted to do with my story, is I wanted to have that same effect. Like one second you're like, oh, this is a nice, happy, like Spider-Man kind of story. Like I really want this kid to do well. But it takes a dark turn, and I won't give away the dark turn, but it does take a dark turn, as you know.
Yeah. Yeah, some of those visuals are just shocking. And I really think when our audience gets to that certain one page, they're just gonna be absolutely shocked as what they're gonna see. And I think it's
He's gonna
gonna blow
nail
their
it.
mind.
He's gonna
Yeah,
nail that.
I am so excited for him to just put like when I saw Pink Lemonade, I was like, okay, this is a cool art style, and I wasn't sure how it was going to translate to horror, and then I saw the Xeno stuff, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's gonna be perfect. I was so excited,
Yeah,
and
like
I'm
Nick's got an edge, man. Like I didn't
yeah,
know that until that story, and I read that part, and I was like, whoa, dude. Like, all right, Nick, get ready to like explore that that
yeah,
part of yourself, man. Like we're gonna go for it. Yeah,
yeah, and
he's super nice too. Like you should talk to him if you get a chance. He's a
oh
really nice
yeah.
guy.
I'm definitely going to try to I'm trying to interview as many of the people involved with this project as possible. Just as both to get to meet everyone, but also like promo for the project so our audience can learn all about it from every angle. And I'm so excited to get to see his work on this because I mean the script already blew my mind, but I'm so excited for his work to just add a whole nother layer to it. And yeah, no, I'm so excited. Do you have anything else you want to add about the project?
I mean, I'm really happy that you like the script so much. Like that's really cool. Um, Yeah, like I mean, I don't even know much. Like I read the stuff that you sent me for it, and it is you're right. It's like it's diverse, right? Like for a project that is taking place in one town and has like this deep like mythology and lore, like there's a lot to explore there, and I think your anthology does explore it pretty well from what I've seen of it so far. Like I'm personally excited to see how everybody's stuff comes out, you know, like
Yeah.
it's I can't wait for like your story and for Justin's, you know. And yeah, I think it's gonna be great. It's gonna be a really cool thing. I think it's gonna be like a kind of like a sleeper hit, you know, like because like you said, you haven't been like out there, hyping it up, but I think that's almost like a good thing. Like I think it's gonna come out of nowhere, and I think people are gonna be really impressed with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm really excited. I my first comic, well, I did a lot of like one pagers over time, but my first big comic project was like 2 or 3 years ago. And I had such a blast with it. The artist is amazing. It's called Psychedelic. It's about a superhero who does drugs to get their powers. Um,
That's
but
cool.
it was but since then I've been kind of quiet on comics and haven't really put out anything in a while. So I am just super hyped to just come out swinging with this project.
You know,
And
oh, sorry. Go ahead.
no, you continue.
Oh, I was gonna say I kind of did the same thing last year. I think you get kind of I think it's easy to get kind of because comics come out so often. It's like the one of the only things that still runs on like a newspaper schedule. You know, like
Mhm.
where you come out with something the day it comes out. You know, everybody's hyped about it, but then like almost 2 days later, it doesn't matter how much this thing was hyped, nobody talks about it anymore. You know,
Yeah.
and everybody gets on this like cycle of like we gotta get stuff out, get stuff out, get stuff out. But I took a step back last year and worked on stuff quietly, and just to come out with stuff this year. And I think it's important to kind of do that.
Mhm.
um because if you get into that grind where you're just constantly coming out with stuff, I think quality dips. I think um you kind of start getting into this grind where you don't necessarily care about your stuff anymore. Like you care, but like I don't know, you're like more like kind of stuck in this like I don't know, like this cycle of like promotion and just all that stuff, and
Yeah.
it's good to take a breath,
Yeah.
um and remember, like who you are and what you're doing, and stop caring about stuff because everybody starts caring a lot about like, oh, am I breaking in, or am I do people respect me as a creator, and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I think it's good to kind of take a break and remember what you're doing it for, and like just who you are as a person.
Yeah. No, definitely. I absolutely agree. I think a lot of those questions really hit the comic communities here because I saw so much burnout this year that I think people were just And it's different for everyone because I know a lot of people who are in rough situations like balancing a day job and balancing comics, but it's so important to just take that step back and like remember what got you started on all this. And like for me, I was like, oh yeah, I would love to work at like one of the big comic companies, but like I am fine just publishing my own stories and like just doing cool shit and just making cool stuff. Like I'm totally fine with that. Because I feel like whatever would make younger me proud that I'm just doing cool stuff, like I think that's the most important thing to me at least.
Yeah, and the funny thing is that people who work a lot at the bigger companies will say they wish they could make their own stuff more, you know?
Yeah.
Like it's grass is greener on the other side, you know, and at the end of the
Yeah.
day, just making stuff and making, you know, saying what you want to say and making what you want to make and things like this anthology is what it's all about, you know, like you're doing your thing, you know. And
Yeah.
we I think we are kind of entering into like because the things are cyclical. If I say that right, as cyclical in comics, you know, and I think we are kind
Yeah.
of entering into another age of like kind of indie hits again. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Um, where you know like the big two kind of drop a little bit, and then we kind of come in doing indie stuff, and I think there'll probably be another Saga or Walking Dead or something that hits either this year or next year and brings
Yeah.
attention back. You know.
Yeah, no, I'm really excited to see, and especially the newer generation of like people going into like comics now. I'm really excited to see some of the stuff they're gonna make because there's so many people I can just list off the top of my head that I'm like that these people I know are gonna make big waves, and it's just exciting to see that a lot of people are getting their opportunities now. And I'm just excited for what's coming next.
Totally. I mean, you're one of
But
those people too, right? I mean, you know, you're one of the generation that's coming in and making waves, you know?
I appreciate that. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on. And for our listeners, next episode, we're gonna have Justin Emmons on, and I'm so excited. Their story is like serial killer meets the Exorcist. It is really crazy, and we actually just got cover work back on that, and it's insane.
Oh,
I'm so
cool.
excited for y'all to see it. But yeah, see y'all on next episode. Let me just